Welcome back to Kings of the North. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis covering a bunch of topics here today. We're going to talk a little bit about Michigan's recent punishment from the NCAA. We're going to do what you watching, what you eating, what you thinking at the end of the show, which we have done here on Kings of the North before. And I think it's fun. We're going to talk about this like Super League idea that like some slide from a presentation got floated and everybody freaked out for a day and then said, that's silly, but it tells us something about way powers that be may be thinking about the future of college football. We're going to talk about like a basketball thing that, Bill, you think nobody wants to talk about basketball on this show, but it's football related. Okay. So we moved it down in the lineup, but I refuse to punt it completely off the show because I have a very clear point I want to make in defense of the North and attacking the South. And I will do that using any sport required.
That's fair. I appreciate where it's coming from, but people don't care about college basketball. People care about college basketball in a very specific window, and we are out of that window.
That window starts again in 11 months and 2 weeks, but until then, zip it. So we'll do that briefly, but it is a two-pronged theory that will affect how you view the football powers in the North when they play basketball. So that's how it matters to football. So stick around for the end for that. But we're going to start with transfer portal. We're going to cover some transfer portal news. We have a really smart question from one of our viewers that we're going to talk about. But we're going to start with Colorado. And I think about sometimes, because I was there as much as anybody. I was there as much as Fox, which Fox was like, let's show Deion Sanders every week to begin last season. And I was there and I was like, would Deion Sanders be a better coach of Ohio State than Ryan Day? Maybe, bring him in. And here we are. And the issue right now is that Shiloh Sanders, one of Deion's sons who plays defense for Colorado, put a thing on social media that was like, hey, if you want to transfer to Colorado, if you're a defensive player, contact me. If you're an offensive player, contact my brother, Shadur Sanders, the quarterback. And it just doesn't seem like that's how everybody else is handling the transfer portal. So like, what do we make of this? Because I think it's telling us something about college football and Colorado that like, this is the way that the Buffaloes are publicly operating.
I'll say this, like, back channel conversations between players regarding transfers happen all the time. So like Shiloh and I guess Shador didn't put it out there, but Shiloh putting it out there is different. But like those conversations, I don't think are out of the ordinary, but it does create an air of unseriousness, I think, with the Colorado program that I'm just like, and I think Shiloh and Shador are coming at it from a good place. Like they want good players on their football team. They want to try to do something in Boulder this year, but like, shouldn't the staff be doing that? Like, shouldn't the staff be out there? And I know like Deion's thing is like come find, you know where I am. I'm not hard to find, that kind of thing. It's like true, but you should be out there more. Maybe I think with recruiting strategies, and certainly your staff should. So like, that's the part of it for me that's a little unsettling. I think if I'm a Colorado fan, it's just like there's an expectation. It seems like a Colorado that like everyone's going to want to play there. And that's not the case because they're not a winning program yet. They've gotten some good players. And I would like to see, I think, a little more effort from them in trying to really retool this roster and not have the coach's sons out there being the guys that are kind of banging the drum trying to get players.
So this is something I've been, everybody thinks about. And it's like the workload of coaches. And this applies to the NFL and college. And it's just like, how did we get into a world where if you aren't sleeping in your office, you're not winning, right? And like, is there a way? It's like, I guess it's like being a hedge fund manager. It's like, whatever. If you're a corporate lawyer on Wall Street or you're managing people's money, like you work 80 hours a week, I don't know. Like that's how it's done. And if you want to succeed at the highest level, and I think when it comes, right, like people whose primary goal is to make money, those people are very similar to football coaches whose primary goal is to win, because winning is the currency of sports, right? And it's like they want to, but like winning is like winning the deal. And then there's lots of other people who want to succeed, but it's like if you're like maybe you make money as a result, but it might not be like at all costs, I'm going to take every waking hour and work to make the money, right? Like everybody wants money, but there's just so like every waking hour football coaches are like, we have to win. And why would I go for a walk when I could take that half an hour to maybe give ourselves a 0.0001 better chance of winning in week 6 in October, even though right now it's April. I'm like, that's the way it is. And like, this feels like a reminder of that, because it's not like Deion's not working 15 hours a week, but sometimes it's like, well, are you not working 100 hours a week? And then it's like, you're not working 100 hours a week. I don't know if you can cut it. One of the greatest athletes of the century. But it's like, we're programmed this way. And like Deion, I think, is sort of like almost trying to show us another way. And all of our instincts are like, nope, 100 hours a week, 38 people on your staff to make sure that you're operating the transfer portal the right way. Because I'm smart and cool and people should want to play for me is actually not a bad idea, but like, it's not enough for us. We demand more, because that's what football is in America. Yeah.
I think you're giving Deion a lot of credit.
You are grinding people into the ground, Bill. I'm trying to let people live their lives. Deion and I are out here trying to let people live. And you are demanding the 100-hour work week.
I'm just demanding what I think is like a coherent and winning strategy. If you can find a way to do that while finding time to go play golf or get a massage or whatever, like, that's great. But I don't feel like Colorado is doing that. Like, their roster is a mess. They're losing a bunch of guys again, and like, they're losing guys who probably shouldn't be playing there. That's not necessarily the point, is that they're losing people, but like, you need more than 30 players to play college football. And like, everything they do is in the transfer portal. Like, don't recruit high school players. So then their roster has no depth. And I just don't understand why they're trying to put their roster together this way. There's like, I just don't sense a whole lot of urgency there to like actually get better at Colorado. Like, they were better last year for sure than they were previously. And I guess we shouldn't take that for granted, but I was anticipating like a real infusion of energy in that program and like a dogged mentality to make Colorado one of the best programs in the country, even if that was like a pie in the sky idea, which I don't really think it is. But even if you thought it was, like, I still don't sense that they're trying to do that. It's just kind of like, oh, we'll see who wants to come here, and then we'll put a team out in the field in the fall and see what happens.
So this Deion at Colorado reminds me of one particular situation where a very successful person moved up a level and tried to do things the same way at the new level that he did at the old level that were successful, and it did not work at all. And it was, I think both these are examples of, it's a reminder of how difficult it is to do this, that like there really is a lot that goes into running a high level football program. There is a lot of people hours. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of work. And the thing it reminds me of is Urban Meyer in the NFL.
Oh,
and like Deion going from Jackson State, where kind of like being Deion was kind of enough. He got Travis Hunter, the #1 player in the country, the #1 recruit, to skip out on Florida State and play FCS football because he was Deion. Okay.
Yeah.
That was enough. Now he goes from FCS to Pac-12, Big 12 football. And I think he's doing the same thing. And it's like, I don't know if it's enough. Urban Meyer had a way of doing things in college that won 3 national championships. And I think he went to the NFL. It's like, I'm going to do it the same way. Like, my team played in Cincinnati. I'm going to go home and not fly home with the team. And it's like, I don't think that's going to work with millionaires. And like, Urban Meyer and Deion Sanders are 2 of the most successful football people of this century. But that wasn't enough. And like, both of those, I would hire Deion again. If you were Colorado, would you hire Deion again?
Yeah.
I would too.
Mm-hmm.
They did all that stuff of like, he like became the face of the university. And when the athletic department, your football team is the front porch of the university, they had a party on the front porch for a month like that university has not seen. Totally worth it. And there's still the chance that they get this turned around. But even if this flames out, I still would do it. But it's a reminder that at the highest level, you maybe kind of have to do it a certain way. And it doesn't matter how successful, how much of a personal brand you are, how much of a success you were at the previous level. When you make that leap, it's kind of like our way or the highway. And so I'm not giving up on Deion, but I like when people do it their own way. I would love for Deion Sanders to have tremendous success at Colorado, and I'm not ruling it out, but this isn't great.
It's not great. It worries me. It worries me for Colorado that like Deion is only there as long as Shedeur is there.
Yeah.
And it was like this was get Shedeur on a bigger platform to get into the NFL.
But if that's what it winds up being, and Colorado and Deion use each other for 2 years, I think it's a mutually beneficial relationship that I think both would still take. And if this is like this crazy 2-year Deion Sanders blip at Colorado, where they were after Mel Tucker left after a year and with Carl Durrell, like where they were, like it reinvigorated them and it made it a better job. And it got them, they were not in the weeds. They're not in the Washington State, Oregon State territory in realignment. They're in the Big 12. They have a chance to succeed. So it's still worth it. But I was kind of in on like Deion's here to win a national championship. And now I think you might be right.
Yeah. But I think I agree with you too. Like it doesn't, even if that ends up being the case, I think I would still do it over again if I were Colorado. Because of where they came from. Like they're still, even if this isn't great, even if it feels like kind of a mess, it's still better than they were before Deion got there.
And it's one of those things that it's just very hard when, even if Deion Sanders won a national championship as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, it would be like the fourth best thing he ever did in sports. You know what I mean? Like it's whenever you get a guy who, like, to his credit, like what he's doing in college football is not the end all be all. It's like, I think you run the risk of this because Deion still has a huge resume and a great life, whether they nail it in the transfer portal or not. Like Ryan Day and Marcus Freeman and Mike Loxley and Dan Lanning never hit a home run in the World Series and returned a punt for a touchdown in the same day or whatever the stuff that Deion did, right? So like, this is it. Dan Lanning and Ryan Day and Marcus Freeman are sleeping in their offices. But if they had been an all-star in 2 professional sports, maybe they'd be doing this too. So anyway, I don't,
right.
I don't, and my number one thing in life is that you have to take the whole package of people. You can't splice people up, and you can't be jealous of someone's professional life, but then like their personal life is a mess, or vice versa, or whatever. They have, success in this, but they have these problems. It's like everybody's everything. And so this is one of those. It's like Deion's Deion, and all the things that made Colorado an absolute sensation out of nothing last September, they're the same things that are making Colorado kind of a joke in the transfer portal right now. So to be like, well, how come the guy who was the September sensation isn't out, with his staff making 70 transfer portal contacts? Like, because that's kind of not what they do, brother.
That's not what Deion does. Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to tell you. So, it feels like some people are like making fun of Colorado, though. But I think maybe the people who are making fun of Colorado are the people who are offended by people who do things their own way or do things differently, or who thought the media blew Colorado out of proportion last September, which we did.
Yeah, I think it's the last part. I think it's the people who took exception to the outsized coverage of Colorado, and now are, reveling in "I told you so" kind of stuff, which is like funny because like you're not really there. Like they still have to play this season. We'll see what happens, but I guess it's low hanging fruit right now.
And like Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter are still awesome,
right?
Like it's just that's not enough. Right. He almost should be a basketball coach, right? I mean, if it's like we have Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, and like 3 role players who are going to defend and rebound, it's like, I think they're going to the Final Four because Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter are that good. But when it's like, who are your other 20 starters? And he's like, man, I don't know. Yeah. We'll see. What's happening with Colorado in the portal, though? They lost one of their one returning offensive lineman from last year, right? Savion Washington, who was one of their tackles last year. He's in the portal, right?
He's in the portal. Yeah, he transferred there from Kent State last year. Was their starting left tackle and was going to be replaced this fall anyway. But he is, so with him leaving, all 5 guys who started the opener for Colorado, the offensive line last year, are no longer with the program.
For what turned out to be a not very good offensive line.
They were a terrible offensive line, so like that's not the worst thing in the world. But also the offensive line is like not a position where you want to be starting 5 new guys every year. So they got to get that figured out. And then Cormani McLean was the other one, which I think got like lumped into a lot of the other stuff, which I actually think is wrong. Like I don't know that Deion or Colorado did anything wrong in the Cormani McLean situation. Cormani McLean, 5-star prospect from South Florida, like a huge recruiting win for Deion when he got to Colorado. And then like from the sound of it, like Cormani McLean like wasn't on top of his stuff at Colorado, and Deion is not the kind of guy I think is going to play somebody who's not on top of his stuff. So, and maybe it didn't help Cormani that he was also a defensive back playing for Deion Sanders. So maybe the bar is that much higher. So like it didn't work out there, but I don't know that Colorado or Deion did anything wrong there. I think it was just a situation where maybe it's probably better for both sides to not be together anymore.
What do you think of the Urban Jacksonville Deion Colorado comparison?
I like it.
Yeah.
I think that Urban and Deion should team up together and coach Colorado.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I thought you were going to say you think they should team up and do an Aflac commercial.
We're close to that to replace Nick Saban. Yeah.
Yeah. It could be like to have Urban and Deion like lying by the pool, and like Deion's phone like buzzes, and Urban's like, "What's on your phone, Deion?" And he's like, "It's a transfer portal. My kid's got it." Like, that'd be a great Affleck.
It's a recruit. Don't worry about it. And then Urban's head explodes. You're not talking to a recruit.
Yeah. Deion's passivity on the recruiting trail causes Urban to have a medical episode that the Affleck duck then has to cover the costs of. Okay, let's talk more generally about what else is happening in the transfer portal. It's still early. Like guys go in like every 5 minutes. So by the time you watch or listen to this, there might be 30 more Northern guys who really matter who are in the portal that we're not talking about right now because they're not right in this second. But we'll talk about the few guys that did go in. And we want to start with a guy that was one of our favorites last year on this show, and that's Damian Martinez of Oregon State. I think he made the Kings of the North all North first team. Did he not? Was he not one of our running backs or all-purpose back, like with Bucky Irving? And I think we got Blake Cormon there, but I think we might have made Damian Martinez like our third back. Maybe.
I can't remember. We had some really. He was definitely in the conversation because we also had Aldrich Estime up there as well. So I can't remember. It was definitely those 4 and then everyone else in the running back conversation.
So he's been announcing for a while that he was going in the portal because like he kind of said I'm not going in the portal initially when like Jonathan Smith left and everything changed, and now he is going in the portal. And I think it maybe ruffled some feathers at Oregon State the wrong way that like he was like, I'm gonna go. No, I'm not gonna go. And by the way, like it was in the reporting that he got
$400,000.
400,000, which was even like somebody at Oregon State put that out there to make it clear, like it's not us, it's the player. Like we tried to give him that much money and like it didn't work, which is like some people were offended by that. I think like, why are you like putting a kid's business out in the world? But also like, if we're going to be in this world, then it's big kid time. And like, I don't necessarily feel bad. Like, I don't know that that's a bad thing to like publicize NIL offers. Do you think it is? Do you think it's bad form?
I don't think it's bad form. Like you said, we're in this world where guys are effectively getting paid, not even like so much to play, it's just like to move. No, I think as a program, you want to be able to demonstrate that you're trying, right? And that's the way that you do it. I mean, assuming that that's a real number.
But we kicked Oregon State off as one of the teams that we count on Kings of the North because they're not like in a power conference league anymore. So I think that probably was the final straw for Damian Martinez. He was like, I'll stay. Yeah. I was, as our producer, Mike Yarostowski is pointing out, he was on our midseason Kings of the North first team. He did not make the final end of the year first team. And I think once he thought, well, at least if I stay at Oregon State, I can be all KOTN. And then he was like, what? Oregon State's not part of it anymore. I'm leaving. So I don't begrudge anybody, but like his world changed around him. He like went from the Pac-12 to like, you don't have a conference. Like the what it means to be an Oregon State football player. Like at the moment, I think Oregon State will be okay. And we've talked about this. If Oregon State settles into a world where they try to be Boise State and get the group of 5 spot, and that kind of like could be great. But like right now, what last year was for the Beavers and what this year is going to be, it's like, of course, Damian Martinez is leaving. So but I don't blame anybody here other than like George Kliavkoff letting the Pac-12 explode.
Yeah, that's who I blame.
Yeah, for real. It's like you're yelling at Damian Martinez, and he's like, my commissioner let my league explode. Can I please go to the SEC? What I don't like is like all his visits are south. And so this is like, where is Jonathan Smith? Like he took Aiden Childs to Michigan State. Why isn't Damian Martinez visiting Michigan State? It seems like he's going to wind up south.
Yeah, he is from Texas. So I guess that's important to factor into the conversation. But like, Washington's looking for running back help. I would like to see Washington get into that mix potentially, keep him in the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, it seems like I think all the teams were mentioned with him. Yeah, Miami, Kentucky, initially Tennessee, but I think not Tennessee now. Mississippi State and Arizona were the ones that play.
Boo. He's a good player. I'd like to see him stay in the North. Let's talk about another running back, Dallin Hayden, who is going in the transfer portal from Ohio State. He helped save the Ohio State running back room 2 seasons ago when they had a ton of injuries, and all of a sudden he's a true freshman running for 100 yards a game. The whole discussion around him last year was like, Ohio State's saving his red shirt. They're not going to play him. I made fun of Ohio State for that. Sometimes the player wants to save his red shirt, so I don't know. Like it's one of the, like, we better save his red shirt for another program, but like, that's that kid's life. So if he's like, listen, man, if you're not going to really play me, like, preserve my eligibility. Mm-hmm. Is he going to end up at Tennessee? Because his dad played at Tennessee, right?
His dad played at Tennessee, but no, it doesn't seem like he's going to end up at Tennessee. At least that's not. They're not the schools kind of like among the initial reporting that I saw for Dallin Hayden. I think it was Steve Wiltfong, who's now on 3, put out a list, and it was Colorado, Auburn, Louisville, UCLA, Virginia Tech, and Georgia Tech. There have probably been more since then. This was on Monday, but you would think that like Tennessee would immediately be the school, right? His dad played there. Dallin is from Memphis. But I don't know. It doesn't sound like it's going to happen.
And this is just one of these things, again, it's like the kid got a taste of it as a freshman. Last year, barely played at all. And now he has Travion Henderson and Quinshawn Judkins ahead of him in what most people think is going to be the best 1-2 running back punch in the country. And at the best, he's third, and he's going to be a third-year player. Like you get that. He wants to go somewhere and get carries. And I think he could go places where he could be, if not the number 1 back, at least like the co-number 1 back, right?
Yeah. Also, his position coach left in the middle of spring practice, which probably didn't help. Which didn't help things either. No, I very much believe that Dallin Hayden can be a starting running back at most Power 4 programs. Again, like if you're a team in the North that's looking for even a starting running back, like I think Dallin Hayden could do a lot for you. It doesn't. Michigan, where Tony Alford, his former position coach, is now, they had a really close relationship. I don't think it's probably in the market for a running back with Donovan Edwards and Khalil Mullings there, but that would be interesting if they got into the Dallin Hayden business. But yeah, another guy leaving a Northern program who is from the South, who might end up playing in the South.
Christian Veyer, who wound up 3rd in the Pitt quarterback pecking order after people thought he might be number 2 behind Nate Yardnell, and then his teammates drafted Eli Holstein, the Alabama transfer, ahead of him in the team spring game draft. And so he's in the portal. So that's not a surprise. Like if you wind up like he was like started several games last year, and if you think you're 3rd now, it's like that just makes sense. It's like they bring in an Alabama guy, and then he also had been at Penn State previously, so he's in the portal again. Penny Boone is interesting. That path, he's running back. Maryland to Toledo, was a star at Toledo, transferred to Louisville in the offseason, and now is leaving Louisville already after spring football. And another guy I'd like to see wind up back north. Couldn't he help a Big Ten team?
Yeah, I think he's a Big Ten caliber back. He was pretty good at Maryland. He was excellent at Toledo. I think he's really good. Again, another guy like Dallin Hayden, who I think can be your number 1 running back. And I just don't know why you wouldn't go after him. It's odd to me. I feel like most teams probably could use some kind of running back help, and I understand like selling RB2 or 3 position to a guy like Dallin Hayden or Penny Boone or especially Damian Martinez is probably a losing proposition. But all 3 of those guys I think will be upgrades at the position 2 for many of the programs in the North. And in the case of Penny Boone, he's from Michigan, right? It's not like he's a guy who could potentially be looking to return home and go play down in the SEC somewhere. Like, he's been in Maryland and Toledo and is from Detroit. So I think you would stand a better chance of keeping him up here than the other two.
Anybody else in the North we need to touch on among the portal entries as we speak?
No, we talked about Keandre Lambert-Smith from Penn State earlier in the week. We talked about Dayan Hayes at Pitt earlier in the week. Nick Evers, the backup quarterback at Wisconsin, who I think we've talked about a time or two on the show, is in the transfer portal.
I guess I've been running with the threes in Madison during spring.
Yeah.
So shock there.
The only, this isn't a guy who's leaving. I guess he's leaving a MAC program. It's defensive tackle CJ West, who seems to be like a very hot commodity. It seems like defensive tackle might be the position where teams are maybe looking to add the most, and he is a defensive tackle. There were just some northern schools listed among those who have contacted him, including Wisconsin, Rutgers, and Indiana, but also LSU, Miami, and Texas A&M were in that mix. He's from Illinois. He went to the same high school as J.J. McCarthy, so it'll be interesting to follow where he ends up, but hopefully it'll be somewhere up here. All
right, so let's talk more generally about the transfer portal, because we got a spectacular question from one of our viewers, Jason M., who asked us this question. This is our choice. College football stays the way it is right now with NIL and the portal. Like, nothing changes. So everybody knows the state of things right now, which is you can get NIL money and leave. You can transfer an unlimited number of times. There's 2 portal windows in the year. Like, it's difficult to maintain rosters, but it also gives players a lot of freedom. It either stays like that, or the NFL creates a G League type of football situation like the NBA has, and the rest of college football goes back to the way it was before, but the top players are in this new like minor league. And it's like, what would that be? It's like what college basketball is now. Like, we went from a world where like everybody in the NBA draft was from a college team, and now you look at the NBA draft, and there's a lot of foreign players, but there's guys who are like going and playing for G League teams, skipping college and going into the draft. And so you have kind of cut off part, not entirely, but part of the top tier of college basketball. So I think like we have a pretty good understanding of what Jason's proposing here. Which would you pick?
The G League thing, like the G League Ignite thing, is they're ending it because like it didn't work. So it just feels like a losing proposition to me. I would, for all of its problems, I would rather have college football as it is now. I don't want to like an official NFL farm league taking away the best college football players and teams, I suppose.
So I would take anything over the current situation. I think I would take, would you rather have the current situation, or would you rather have every major college football team coached by a collection of third graders? I would take that. I was like, well, I think the third graders would find a way to create a game plan. It's like, would you take the current situation, or would you have every college football game played in a bathroom? And it's like, everybody's trying to get from the toilet to the sink, and you've got to tackle them or not. And that's the game. It's like, I'd take toilet football. Like, this is the worst. This is the worst. Like, it's nonsensical. And like this time where we're dealing with situations where like guys can get NIL money because NIL money can't make you stay, and then they can leave and go in the portal, and there's like no structure. I just would take anything. And so to me, I mean, what Jason's saying is it goes back to the way it was before. I guess like I would take that option, but I would take like a collectively bargained, like, let's have rules, let's have contracts, let's have whatever. Let's have some sanity to player movement. Let's have some sanity to player compensation. And if that means you're losing the top 8% of players, I would take that trade-off for sanity. Because it's like, what matters more? And this is interesting. It's got like, what matters more? The quality of the players or the quality of the structure? That like the sport makes sense, and like you know who your team is, and players can be fairly compensated but also stay and develop, and guys aren't changing teams 5 times in a career, and 3, Penny Boone's transferring from a school where all he did was go through spring practice. Like, I just think this is bad. And the reason I'm not worried about it is because I don't think it's going to stay this way. but I think this is very bad. So I would rather lose. But now the other part of this is college basketball's lost something. And I think the college basketball regular season is far beneath what it used to be, but people still get pretty juiced for March Madness because you make a bracket and you like your team. So I don't know.
But even that, like even that to me, like feels like incredibly watered down. Like maybe it was just this year, but like I thought this year's tournament kind of sucked. Didn't it? Like just didn't feel like it had any juice.
I was excited for the Klingon-Edey national championship game that we got.
Maybe I just don't like college basketball that much. maybe that's my issue.
So, I mean, it is different. Is it different than when like Anthony Davis was playing in the national championship game and then was going to go on to be the number one pick? Yeah, it is different. But also college basketball, with guys making the leap when, in that time when they were making the leap and skipping college before they changed that rule, like they were losing the top cut of guys. LeBron James never played college basketball. But I guess I would say I think the structure is more important to the future and the popularity and the sanity of the sport than the players are. And especially when it's like, I think the structure right now is like a 2 out of 10. And we're talking about a world where if you lose the top tier players, maybe now the talent's an 8 out of 10. You know what I mean? I think it's horrible right now. Don't you think do you think it's horrible right now? The way the NIL and portal work?
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. No, I don't like, I'm very much in favor of more structure, which I hope like doesn't come off in a way. Like I'm also like very much in favor of players like making money to play college football.
Yeah.
So maybe that sounds like you're talking about both sides of your mouth at times, but like the no structure is nonsensical. It's crazy. But I guess I would need to know more about what this potential G League structure would look like. Because how many players are you taking? Like what percentage of the top players that would be playing college football are no longer be playing college football, right? So I don't know. I would still watch college football, I guess. So I see the merit of the idea, I suppose. If it brings more structure and less insanity to the sport, then it's probably a good thing.
I mean, what if they created a G League where they took like the top 200 players in college football and made like 5
teams,
made 5 40-man teams and played round robins and played against each other and had games that were televised. It was like, you'd be like, man, CJ Stroud looks really good. Wow, that Bryce Young, he looks like a really good player. But it wouldn't be the same kind of thing. And like, maybe not everybody would still choose that. Like, I think it'd be okay. If it stays like this, I don't think it'll be okay. Like, this is so bad. Yeah. I don't know that it will be okay long-term if this is what it is. You're begging fans to donate to an outside group who then pays players who don't have to stay to collect the money. And players are free agents, not just every year, but twice a year. The whole sport's a free agent twice a year. And they're lured by money that they don't have to stay to get. This will kill the sport eventually. And the reason that we're not doom and gloom on this show and that we don't overanalyze this is that I believe, and I think everybody believes, this is kind of like a bump in the road on the way to something better. But like, if you're telling me this is it, the sport's dead.
Yeah, I guess if you're telling me this is it, then it's dead either way. But I also don't like I'm not trying to get hung up on the hypothetical G League thing, but like, does that model work for football? It's not like basketball, you go to play G League night for 1 year and then you go play professional basketball. Like, that's not how football works.
And you could do a thing. What if it was that like high school players were eligible to be drafted and then they just became like the property of those NFL teams and they just practiced with their team and you never got to see them play. But to protect their bodies, the NFL made a rule that you may not play in an NFL game until you're 2 years removed from high school, but you may be employed by an NFL team. And you may practice and learn and develop, and maybe you play like JV. You have like a JV version of things. Like maybe it's not even televised, but it becomes a developmental situation and you lose the top 300 players, right? And some guys who want to get paid right away and go right to a developmental situation and are not interested in college and are willing to give up the college experience and the college games, like that's okay. Like that's an option for them. It's basically about, would you lose the cream of the crop or some portion of the cream of the crop to bring sanity to the game? And I would undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Super League. This was an idea that I don't even know. Stuff appears on Twitter. I don't even know. Like somebody said, like, this is a slide from a presentation, right?
Yeah,
But
so the group,
what is it?
whatever the group was that The Athletic reported about a couple weeks ago, it's like a group of like 20 people. Um, and then Sportico was the one that got like the slideshow deck of what they actually presented to, I guess, the conferences. Before the conferences said like, no thanks, we don't want to meet with you because this idea is stupid.
Yeah. So the idea basically is it was an 80 team top tier of college football, which is just like basically everybody in the Power Five, the Power Four, and like a
Yeah.
couple more. Like it's kind of like, and they divided up those 80 teams into 8 10-team divisions that were geographically based. And I actually thought it was great. Like, I don't like, why would you not want that? Like everyone's like, this is stupid. And are they saying it's stupid because it's like completely against the point that people are making as we head? Like, you can't have a super league that's 80 teams because then it's not super. Like, is that why people thought it was stupid? Or did people think that an 80-team group divided geographically into 8 divisions is stupid? Because I actually think that is great.
I don't think it was the divisional structure that people found to be dumb. It was the promotion relegation suggestion, which makes absolutely no sense in a sport where your roster turns over every year. And also like some of the financial, like the collective bargaining and like the money that was involved, like, and the percentages they were talking about didn't make any sense.
Okay.
Like, and then they broke it like collective bargaining gives them a certain percentage of the television contract, but like it's not this. That's not as one. It's not as valuable as the NFL television contract, and two, there are 80 teams instead of 30 teams, and there are 100 players on those 80 teams instead of 54 players on 30 teams. Right? It's just like the math doesn't work.
Okay. Okay. So the idea of an 80-team group in 8 10-team divisions, did you like that?
Yeah, I liked bringing some regionality back to college football.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah.
I mean, it felt old-fashioned to me. It was like, you mean like we used to do it? And you
Mhm.
play the teams near you who are
Yeah.
kind of at the same level as you? And again, like it split the Big Ten in half, but it created like a really cool Northeast. It basically Northeast group with like Rutgers and
Penn
Boston
State,
College and Syracuse and like all those together, like really cool. I think Pitt and Penn State, like really cool group there. Like a good like Midwest one, a Plains one, a Pac-12 one. Like I thought that was great. So anyway, okay. I didn't know why people were like, but obviously like that's not the point. But I am, and again, the hypothetical stuff, I think there's a little bit of that goes a long way. The main thing is like when people think Super League, they think it's just going to be like the 30 teams that people care about on TV are going to break off. And then that way they all just play each other and they get all the TV money. And it's like the whatever, if it's 30 teams, it's the 10 most popular teams in the SEC, the 10 most popular teams in the Big Ten, and the 10 most popular teams from the rest of the country.
Yeah.
And so the thing that I continue to wonder about is, especially as you expand the schedule, is I still think good teams want to play mediocre teams and that there is value in that and that they are willing to share money, maybe not equally, but I don't think Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and Oregon only want to play Texas, Georgia, Alabama, and LSU. I think they sometimes want to play in a season where, a 12-game regular season, then in the playoff where you're only playing good teams. I think they want to play Purdue and Northwestern and Rutgers during the regular season. Yeah. And that means you've kind of got to keep them connected somehow. And maybe if you tell Northwestern, Purdue, and Rutgers that like, we're not splitting the money equally anymore, like whatever, we're getting twice what you get, but I still think there's like value and cohesion in that. So sometimes when it's like, nope, 30 biggest brands, that's it. Every single college football game every week as an absolute TV banger. Like, have Ohio State, Michigan play 3 times a year. It'll be great. People will love it. Like, I don't know that that's realistic because every sport has the good teams play some not as good teams, right?
Yeah.
Or the only other choice there is if you break off the top 30, some of those top 30 that are good now will become the not as good teams. And I'm not so sure that's very exciting for them. It's like, Ole Miss, congratulations. Welcome to the 30-team Super League where you will go 3-9 every year. Isn't this fun? It's profitable. Remember when you used to win 10 games a year and you get to beat Vanderbilt? Nope. Now you play Bama, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Notre Dame. But man, are the eyeballs there on TV. Like, that's better. Like, again, there's the theoretical of like what's actually better, and then what will the money grubbing people at the TV networks and at the top of the sport demand to do. I still don't think they'll do that. I know they're money grubbing, but I think they would step back and say, well, we still want to be good. And if you're a 30-team league that only plays each other, half the teams aren't going to be good.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think the separation will be kind of what it is already, right? Like P5 or P4 and like around that number, between 60 and 80, is like its own thing. And then the remaining teams that are in FBS are kind of maybe their own thing. But yeah, I don't grabbing the top 30 teams and making a second NFL. I don't necessarily think this is where this is heading. Because to your point, I don't really know if that's palatable for the schools, right? For a lot of reasons. Like it might even be less lucrative to do that, right? Than it would be to have the 80-team Super League or however many teams it is. So I'm not fearful of that. But I do think some kind of separation will eventually happen.
Yeah, and it's you're going to have to step up and monetarily step up to the plate and say, we're going to spend this much money on football, and if you agree to do that, you're welcome. And that's going to be universities and athletic departments deciding that. But I just don't see a world where, I don't know, like if Illinois says, yeah, no, we want to do it, we're here, let's go, and they're like, I don't know, man, you're not as good as Texas. And it's like, I know, okay, but like we want to do this. We really care. We'll spend the money. Like Illinois has value, and then Illinois might be good every couple of years. They're not going to be Ohio State, but I think you need teams like that. And I think sometimes when people talk about this, they're too dismissive of needing mediocre programs. Maybe this is just me. I'm like a therapy. Mediocre programs and people have value, Bill. They do.
They do. Yeah.
Just because I wouldn't make a super league doesn't mean I have no value. I think it'll be less dramatic and more sensible than people think, even though there's no reason to trust the money grubbing TV executives and people at the top of the sport who want every nickel, and so far have proven they will do whatever it takes to get every nickel, including creating a conference that goes from Piscataway to the Pacific and like sneaking Oklahoma and Texas out of the Big 12 in the dark of night. Like we know. But I think the most diabolical, is this naive? I think the worst stuff behind us.
Probably.
Yeah. Like they're probably making phone calls right now to Purdue, Northwestern, and Rutgers and being like, guys, it's just not going to work out. And I'm like, they need them. Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about a little bit about the Michigan punishment. I'm going to give my basketball theory, and then we'll do what you're watching, what you eat, and what you're thinking next on Kings of the North. Welcome back to Kings of the North. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. Just all kinds of stuff, Planet Landis. I'd like to just remind people on here that like we like what we are now, but what we are going to be long term is not what we are now. And we painted a wall, but we're also talking about other stuff and like people, show frequency, like the people who are going to be on this show. It's good. It's all good. It's all good.
It's exciting. Yeah.
Michigan got punished by the NCAA. This is for the COVID stuff. This is not the Connor Stallion stuff. So what the NCAA and Michigan agreed to a punishment and like agreed, I guess, to a set of facts, which is like, yeah, they did some stuff during COVID that you weren't supposed to be doing. They were doing some recruiting stuff. And they agreed that like Jim Harbaugh had some responsibility overseeing that like he didn't exactly do what he was supposed to do. And so Tom Mars, who is the lawyer for Jim Harbaugh and is the lawyer for everybody.
Everybody, yeah. That guy's client list is extensive.
He came into our lives with Tate Martell, right? Was that
Justin Fields?
Wasn't he? But didn't he have a Tate thing before that? Or
I remember
Justin Fields was before Tate.
It was Justin Fields before you could transfer and do whatever you wanted. Justin Fields had to get a waiver to be eligible to play at Ohio State.
Yeah,
in 2019 after he transferred.
So Tom Mars is like always. He's just like, do you have something you want to fight with the NCAA about? I'll take your case. Like whatever it is.
But he has also been on the side of the NCAA too, hasn't he? Hasn't he worked both sides of that?
I'm sure it's
a great deal.
Yeah. So like good for him. But like the media loves quoting Tom Mars, and it's like, I'm good. But anyway, he basically said he did a whoomp whoomp sound. I don't know if he typed out whoomp whoomp in an email or a statement, or if he said whoomp whoomp, but he made the sound of Michigan driving the bus over Jim Harbaugh in agreeing to this settlement and saying that, like, yeah, Jim Harbaugh was responsible for this stuff. They took 3 years probation. There's going to be a little bit of recruiting stuff. It's not that big of a deal, and nobody thinks the NCAA should have authority on anything anymore. But I think and this is not the Connor Stallion stuff. That's still in discovery. This is not the end of that. But this was the first thing that Jim Harbaugh got suspended for last year for the first 3 games, and he got suspended partly because he wasn't cooperating. So it's like, again, it's like people almost think that like not cooperating with the NCAA at this point is like a badge of honor. It's like, why would I talk to those yahoos? They don't know what they're doing. They're not a police force. Like, and now he's gone to the NFL. They have no authority over him. Here's what I think is the most interesting thing. Like with Michigan sort of like agreeing to this, like they reached a settlement with the NCAA, and part of the settlement that like Michigan agreed to is admitting that Jim Harbaugh did some stuff wrong. I am wondering, once we get through the Connor Stallion stuff, would we be at a point where there is a break between Jim Harbaugh and Michigan, not dissimilar to the break that we saw, I think, unfortunately, not as like spectacularly ignited, but like in the end, the outcome of what we saw with Bob Knight in Indiana, where you were at a place, you did great things at a place, but then in the end, in leaving the place and the way you left, it severed the relationship. And I hate that. And it just feels like, depending how the Connor Stallions thing goes, I wonder if there are seeds of that. And that would be unfortunate, because the fans will pick Jim Harbaugh over the university.
100%. Yeah.
But I hope they are not forced to do that.
I could see it, right? It was Jim Harbaugh was back in Michigan for Michigan's pro day. I guess that was a couple weeks ago now, right? And they like made a thing about Jim Harbaugh being back there, and I think Michigan's social media team might like put a video together of it or something. And like it'll be super awkward if what you're talking about happens, because I think like Michigan football PR will still do that, like sort of like independently of the university, like welcoming back Jim Harbaugh anytime he's there. Meanwhile, he's like blacklisted by the university because they needed somebody to take the fall, and why not pick the guy who's not here anymore? So yeah, I think that's on the table. It's also interesting to me that like and not surprisingly, like the relationship between the NCAA and Michigan related to the Connor Stallion stuff like seemed quite combative. And this, obviously, they work together to come to some resolution here. Does that mean they are more willing to work together to come to some kind of resolution on the Connor Stallion stuff, or is that a separate matter entirely, where like they come back to the table and Michigan's going to pretend like they don't know who the NCAA is?
I will say, on the other hand, Jim Tressel in Ohio State had a difficult divorce. I mean, he actually got fired there. I mean, Michigan didn't fire Jim Harbaugh. And I thought that would maybe linger. And he was back like the next fall being lifted up by his 2002 national championship team. And that hatchet is completely buried at this point. Like there is no animosity between, at least publicly, and Jim Tressel was back in the Ohio State football facility, right? So like, I think Bob Knight, Indiana is like an example of how it can go wrong. And I think Jim Tressel, Ohio State is like how it can go wrong and then get healed, right? And so maybe Jim Harbaugh in Michigan or that. I just like Jim Harbaugh, it's over. He's an all-timer. Like, right? Like when you're doing, and we might do this eventually, there's a lot of off seasons ahead on Kings of the North, but the Michigan football Mount Rushmore, Jim Harbaugh is number 2 of sure things. Is he not? It's Bo, and then it's Jim Harbaugh. Like it's not Desmond Howard. It's not Charles Woodson. It's not Tom Harmon. Yeah. It's not Tom Brady. It's Jim Harbaugh.
Is it Fielding Yost?
It's Jim Harbaugh, right? Like, I'm not.
It is.
It is a turn for Michigan fans. It's Bo and it's Harbaugh. And so that cannot be severed. And so I will never be severed with the fans, but it would be unfortunate if like every time he's back, it's like, no. Now, if like Ward Manuel and Jim Harbaugh have that, like, that's fine. Like that's like a personal, but like the university, and the athletic program and the football program. I hope Jim Harbaugh, he's going to be a legend to the fans. He should be a legend to the university as well. They got to build a statue, man.
Is it like, this is a tangent off of that, but it is interesting to me that like Ohio State, for a place that has had some like acrimonious divorces in the past, like they don't linger. It's like everyone's welcome back.
Ohio State, good at divorce, man.
Yeah, they are. Ohio State is very good at divorce.
And I think like most of the people, and like as a naive young reporter, I'm like, I can remember like when Thad Matta said it. It's like Thad Matta was like, man, everybody gets hired to get fired. I was like, you're never gonna get fired, Thad Matta. You're a good coach. I was like, oh no, he get fired.
Yeah. But then he was back like a year later or 2 years later, right? And they put him up in the rafters.
But it's like, you're definitely gonna get divorced.
Yeah.
But it'll be amicable.
Right.
like, congratulations on your hiring. We look forward to a beautiful divorce. Ohio State sports. But like, that's a lot of sports in general, right? Like there are not many people, Mike Krzyzewski, were like, there's not a lot of riding off into the sunset in college sports these days, right? So I think sometimes the best you can hope for is an amicable divorce. And so I don't even know if like Jim Harbaugh going to the NFL is a divorce. Maybe it was more like a common law marriage. And like one day he kind of just left and they're like, oh, well, there was no ceremony. We kind of knew he was going back to the NFL eventually anyway, but we had a good run, didn't we? You can be wistful. So also, by the way, I still think it's quite possible that Jim Harbaugh did some nefarious stuff with Connor Stallion. So like, but that doesn't mean that Michigan's not going to build a statue to him. And that doesn't mean that like Michigan fans don't love the guy. So this part is done. That second part is not done.
No.
Just reminder.
Yeah.
But like, even when we were talking about this, you were like, I don't think people are that outraged about this. Like this kind of just slipped past. You didn't feel like this was like a huge story in college football. Like boom, 3 years probation for Michigan.
No, and it's probably because the Connor Stallion stuff is still lingering. So everyone's just like waiting for that much bigger shoe to drop. If that wasn't there, maybe the reaction to this will be stronger. Although I do think generally like people have grown kind of numb to like recruiting violation type of stuff.
Yeah. They are numb. Numb's a good word. Let's talk about my basketball theory. Okay, this is like, I'm sort of coming to the defense of Northern basketball. And this is why I want to do this, because everybody got mad when the Big Ten didn't win the national championship again in college basketball. Did you notice that the Big Ten did not win? Saw that?
I did notice, yeah.
So it has now been 23 college basketball national championships that the Big Ten has not won. The last one was Michigan State in 2000. And the thing that I note is that they've had 7 different programs make the national title game since then and fail, which I truly think is remarkable. Like it's it's not like, well, like you have 7 different programs. And when this run started, there were only 11 teams in the Big Ten. So 7 of the 11 have made the national title game and all have fallen short, but like they're right there. And again, my main thing in sports is, are you in the mix? Are you competing? Because I think that's what makes it fun. That's a way to judge people. Do you judge it only on one game at the end? And like they're competing. They're just not winning at the end. And I don't even know that they're like falling short, because I'm not sure how many of those national title games they were favored in. But like they get there and then they lose to Duke or whatever. So like, what are you going to do? But right, so Purdue was just the most recent one, but Indiana is also on that list. Michigan twice, Michigan State, Illinois, the year they were undefeated and then lost to Ohio State at the end of the regular season, lost in the national title game. Wisconsin and Ohio State. Is that not like, when we talk about the Big Ten's failures in college basketball, shouldn't we also note that? Because I think 0 national titles since 2000 is remarkable. I also think 7 separate programs finishing second is also remarkable.
Yeah, especially given the randomness of the NCAA tournament. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no other conferences have that. There's not 7 SEC teams that have made the national title game in the last 2 decades. I promise you that. So here's the main thing I want to talk about in like my defense of Northern basketball. Okay. There's 2 points. One is, in what were the old blue bloods, right? Which like the old blue bloods are what? Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, UNC, UCLA, Indiana. Are those the 6?
Yep. I think so.
And Indiana's the deadest.
It sure is.
So when you think of like since the Big Ten's last national title, Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, and North Carolina all have national titles. Duke and North Carolina each have 3. Indiana dying has killed the Big Ten. So like this is mostly Indiana's fault. Like, is that not true? The Big Ten had a blue blood and they've stunk for 2 decades. They've been like a non-factor. Yes, right? Is that not true?
What was Bob Knight's last year at Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, I know. So like they made it in 2002, right? And that was with Mike Davis. So I think Knight's last year was maybe like 97 or 98.
Yeah, and Indiana also got, I don't know how far under Crean, right? Like the Sweet 16s, I think.
Yeah, but they were also 1 seed sometimes where they kind of blew it in the tournament. So yeah.
Knight's last year was 2000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that fair? So like as we're discussing this, and I would expand it slightly further, like because there's a point coming. The basketball first programs in the Big Ten, like the basketball first programs in the Big Ten, I think there only might be 3. And it's Indiana, Purdue, and Maryland.
Illinois.
You think Illinois basketball first?
Yeah.
Like in terms of the priority of the university and the fan base and what they care about more?
Yeah.
Okay. So 4. But Maryland, by the way, has won a national title since 2000. They just weren't in the Big Ten yet. And Purdue has been like a great program defined by March failures. So like that's a tough one. And so, and like Illinois is pretty good right now, but like, their D Brown, Darren Williams team fell a game short. So anyway, but mostly it's Indiana. So like point number 1, this is Indiana's fault. True or false?
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Point number 2 is the 3 best Northern college basketball programs of the last 20 years are 3 programs that are non-factors in football. 2 of them don't even play FBS football. And I would say those 3 Northern teams to see if
Can I
you
guess?
Yeah, go ahead and guess.
UConn.
Yes.
Villanova.
Yes.
I don't know. What's the third one?
Gonzaga.
Oh yeah, Gonzaga.
Yeah. So you got to expand your mind. It's like if people don't know, Gonzaga is in Washington. So
Yes.
I guarantee there's somebody watching or listening who's like, Gonzaga's not in Missouri? What? I thought Gonzaga was in the Yucatan Peninsula. Who knew? So basketball only schools do not exist in the South. What is there is not an equivalent to the Big East in the South. And so, So while we are blaming the Big Ten for not winning national titles in basketball, what has actually happened is that 18 of the last 23 national titles have been claimed by basketball first schools, and sometimes almost like basketball only schools. And those in the North are not in the Big Ten. But if the Big Ten invited UConn, they would join tomorrow. If the Big Ten invited like Louisville would join tomorrow. It's just not where the center of power is. You know what I mean? And like, I think we have to take that into account because UConn and Villanova, since the last Big Ten national title in basketball, UConn and Villanova have won 7 national titles. North Carolina and Duke have combined to win 6. So UConn and Villanova are equal to North Carolina and Duke. It's just that North Carolina and Duke also play football in a way that matters in a power conference, and UConn and Villanova do not. And by the way, when everyone makes fun of the Big Ten for not winning a national title since 2000, do you know how many national titles the SEC has since 2000?
1.
3. So Kentucky has 1, which is barely better than Indiana, and they just ran off their coach because the preeminent SEC basketball power is failing. Okay, so congratulations, you have 1 to Indiana's 0. Okay, and then the other 2 are the absolute lightning in a bottle. It's practically 20 years ago Florida teams.
Oh yeah,
and Florida basketball is nothing, literally nothing right now. So it's like I get it. You had a future NBA coach and you had like Al Horford and Joakim Noah and Corey Brewer. Like I get it, but like it's not incredibly relevant to today. And like Ohio State could have beaten them. So like there's a part of me that like while we're criticizing the Big Ten, there is Northern power in college basketball. It is just at basketball only schools that don't exist in the South. The SEC has barely been any better than the Big Ten when it comes to this stuff. And by the way, the Big Ten has been so spread out, they've had 7 different teams fall just short. And if we're going to rip them for not winning, we have to give them a little credit for being close. So that's the conversation I want to have. 2 things. Why the Big Ten hasn't won a national championship in basketball. It's Indiana's fault. And UConn, Villanova, and Gonzaga are their best Northern basketball programs, and they don't care about football.
I buy it.
Okay.
I don't disagree. Yeah.
I want to just throw it into the mix as everybody's like, oh, North sucks at basketball. It's like Connecticut's in the North.
Yeah. People forget that. People forget that UConn's in the North.
Right. UConn. Right. That's like right outside Tuscaloosa, right?
That's right.
UConn, Alabama. It sounds like an Alabama city. I'm from UConn, Alabama, and we've won 5 titles. Your mascot.
I bet there's a town. I bet there's a town in Alabama called Yukon, but it's spelled YUKON.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And your mascot, if it was an Alabama team, their mascot wouldn't be a big hairy dog.
No, it'd be
18 of the last. This is also like last thing on this, because this is more than you wanted to do. But aren't I making salient points? This is salient,
you are. Yes, they are. Yes. Yes.
And it relates to football, because here's my fun one. 18 of the past 23 national champions have been basketball first schools. Okay. UConn 5, Duke 3, North Carolina 3, Kansas 2, Villanova 2, Maryland 1, Kentucky 1, and Louisville 1. Okay. Do you disagree that those are basketball first schools, or those are all pretty clear? Okay.
Yep.
I had 2 on the edge that I didn't know where to go. Virginia and Syracuse.
Both basketball first, both.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's 20 out of 23. And then the only 3 national titles won by non-basketball first programs are the 2 Florida titles, which we would definitely acknowledge Florida's football first, and Baylor. And I don't know what a Baylor person, my good friend Shahan J. Haraja, who I used to do a show with, is a Baylor grad. I could have asked him. I don't think they're definitively basketball first. They might just be like, well, we're first with whatever we're good at, but like they care about football there. It's Texas, right? So
yeah, it's Texas. I think it's. I think they're probably football first.
I mean, compared to Kansas or Duke, right? They wouldn't be that, or UConn.
Yeah.
So anyway, so now we're no longer having a discussion of why hasn't the Big Ten won a national title. We're now having a discussion about how much of an edge is it to be a basketball first program in the pursuit of a national title. And then how many programs in your conference would you consider basketball first? And I saw people who were writing like the Big Ten needs to like have a summit and figure out why their basketball programs aren't living up to snuff. And I would say, well, 7 of them made the national title game. And second, I would say, aren't almost all of them football first? And like, that's the answer. Football first programs are not winning national titles. And most of the Big Ten is football first. And does anybody really want to change that?
No, I don't. Who would want to? Yeah.
The entire shape of college athletics is being formed around football. And the Big Ten is raking in the dough and being a place where programs want to come because they care about football so much. And then it's not coincidental that they're not winning basketball titles. It's because it's not what their focus is. And it's hard to be good at both. And like nobody is. I know Alabama made the Final Four, but like Alabama discovered it had a basketball program 4 years ago, right? They used to have a guy who wore a plaid jacket to games, and they were like, we got a plaid jacket guy. It's like, have you ever made the Sweet 16? No. They'd never made the Final Four before. Ohio State's basketball history dwarfs Alabama's. But like Alabama made it now because Nate Oates is a better coach than Chris Holtmann. So then it's like the Big Ten is not. So anyway, I want to frame the discussion, I think, in a way that hadn't been framed. That's all I'm framing. We good? Is that okay?
We're good.
Like, some of that out?
No,
we're okay. Bring this argument to their friends.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good way to frame it. You're right. You changed my point of view on it.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Blame Indiana.
When in doubt, blame Indiana.
When in doubt. Let's go to, but Kurt Cignetti's like, Indiana's football first. What are you talking about, baby?
That's right.
What you watching, what you eating, what you thinking. This is where we talk about things we're watching on TV or movies or whatever, things that we're consuming and putting in our bodies. And then this stuff that's making us say, about life in general. Bill Landis, what are you watching?
Are you familiar with the web YouTube series Hot Ones?
Nope. You know oh, yeah. Where they lick wings.
They lick wings. Yeah, that's one way to describe it. It's an interview show where they eat increasingly spicy buffalo wings, and it's really good. I watch it quite regularly. But Conan O'Brien was the most recent guest, and I guess the guest of like the season finale. And I love Conan.
You do?
I do. Yeah, I'm a big Conan fan. I'm sad that he is not regularly appearing on television anymore, or really like anywhere other than his own podcast. He does have a new show coming out on HBO, I think maybe later this week. But anyway, like Conan was the guest, and like he was out, like there were clips all over the place of it because people were like freaking out about it. And like I thought, like, well, this is gonna suck. Like everyone's saying this is the greatest thing they've ever seen. There's no way it's gonna live up to it. And then I watched it, and it did. It was great.
Wow,
I loved it. So if you I realize like Conan probably is not for everyone, right? Like he's an acquired taste, I think, at times.
Specific, yeah.
But if you can tolerate that, I would suggest watching it. And I also just think Hot Ones is like a cool premise for an interview show. Like the Hot Wings like disarms people, and they answer questions in a way that they probably wouldn't in a normal interview setting. So it's a cool show in general. But I thought the one with Conan O'Brien that came out, I think last week, was one of the better ones I've seen.
So I have seen clips of it. I thought maybe it was only clips. Like, how long is the actual show? If it's like an interview show, how long is the Conan episode?
I think the Conan one's like 25 minutes. They're usually around 25, like between 20, 30 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was like a 45-second show.
No, I want to say they eat 10 wings. I think it's like 10 wings and 10 questions. So it takes about 2 to 3 minutes a question. Yeah.
I think we should eat 10 cheeses. You could do that.
Oh, I could eat 10 different types of cheese.
10 different cheeses and ask 10 questions.
I would do that.
All right. So my thing is, again, like I'm an old man and I just started looking at Instagram, and like you click on one thing on Instagram and then it's like they think you like this. Let's give you 40 more things of this. So I have somehow started watching on Instagram clips of people gambling in casinos.
Nice.
And it started with this guy who's like, I'm betting $5,000 on black on roulette. Let's see if I win. And the thing I will give, and then it turns out there's a gazillion people doing that. First of all, I didn't think you could film stuff in casinos.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think you could either. Is it like the person who is gambling like filming themselves?
No, it's like their Yahoo sidekick is filming them, but they're talking. Oh yeah, I
didn't think you could do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I assumed that like a mob guy came and broke your legs the minute you were like, I'm going to take a video of whether I get blackjack or not. So anyway, I don't know if like casinos allow it with specific things to promote the casino or whatever. So first of all, I didn't know that was possible. Second, I will give them credit. They all show themselves losing. They don't only show themselves winning. So that I appreciate. That I think is a good thing. But the third thing is, and I guess I'm just a sucker. There are gazillions of people winning and losing, and mostly losing at gambling all over this country right now. And the whole thing of gambling is there's just two things that happen. You either win or you lose. It's practically like watching someone flip a coin. But I watch it to the end every time to see if they win or lose. Random person I don't know. This is one mini snippet of the gambling in this nation, but I, for some reason, want to know whether this person who annoys me and I don't know who they are, I want to know if they won $100, if they won their $100 slot machine spin or not. And most of them are like, I'm going to bet $1,000 on one roulette spin. And I'm like a 21-year-old dingleberry. Spin. I lost. It's like great content. It's stupid, but I click on it like a moron. And then when I click on it, I get 30 more pieces of that content in my Instagram feed, and I'm sucked in. All I'm doing is watching people gamble.
Yeah, Instagram and TikTok's like that too. It's like you scroll through TikTok and like, oh, there's a clip of the show Yellowstone. And it's like you stop and watch the whole thing, and then TikTok's like, you want to watch the whole series on TikTok, don't you? And then it just gives you everything that's happened. Like, no, I don't want to do that.
No.
So that part is annoying. Where does the money come from? Whose money are they gambling? Their own?
I guess their own. I don't know. I'm like, are they somehow monetizing their Instagram feeds?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can do
So
that.
like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But like a lot of it is like, I just put $1,000 in this slot machine. I'm gonna do $100 spins. Spin. I lost. Idiot. And so, but like most of the time, like sometimes, like I don't like reality television, but clearly a lot of the success of reality television is people like watching idiots. Like, let's watch a moron do something stupid. And I find that actually not very amusing at all. Because I just like, if I saw an idiot in a grocery store doing something stupid, I would want to punch them. I would not be amused by them. So it's not the idiots losing money. It's really, I just want to find out what happens. Like, I'm just like, ooh, where did the roulette ball land? I just want to know. But why don't I just go to a casino and stand in front of a roulette wheel?
You know what you should do is you should gamble on the videos. Like gather the family around and like, okay, kids, you want to put 5? Is this guy going to land on black or on red?
And then I could film that and then monetize me watching people monetize. Now we're on to something. We'll be a KOTN spinoff. Doug and Bill watch Instagram gambling videos and gamble on the gambling. All right, what are you eating?
I want to add another. I guess I haven't done that much on KOTNs, but when we do this on Kings of Columbus or High State Show, like I'm a proponent of frozen pizzas you can find in the frozen food aisle. Aficionado. Yeah, I'd like to add another one to anyone's rotation out there who's looking to add to it. It's the barbecue chicken pizza from Trader Joe's.
Ooh.
Very good, and it's probably like a 10-inch pizza. Like it's bigger than like a normal personal size pizza, but still small enough where you can probably eat the whole thing yourself and not feel guilty about it. And it's good. It's got it's a barbecue chicken, obviously, like onions and something else on there. I can't remember, but anyway, it's quite tasty. It's a circular pizza. You cut it, and you can cut it whichever way you want, but like cut it in triangles. But it's like still like a flaky kind of crust too, like a flakier thin crust. It's very good. And it takes like 8 minutes to make, so it's great.
I always ask this when it comes to like the chicken flavored pizzas. The sauce is barbecue sauce, like it's not red sauce, right?
Yep.
Because I really do like a pizza that has like a chicken like that, like a buffalo chicken or a barbecue chicken, but it's still red sauce, and then it's just like a topping. But that's not how a lot of those go. And so sometimes I am wary. It's like, most of the time when I'm eating a pizza, I really want the red sauce. And so I get thrown sometimes. It's like, I want to go partially barbecue, but like I don't want to go all the way.
Well, that's an interesting conversation. Like what part of the pizza makes it a pizza, right? Like if you're not putting marinara sauce on there, is it technically still a pizza? I don't know. It's more like a flatbread kind of thing that you just decided to cut in the triangles.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel like we should have an expert on to discuss this.
Yeah,
I think we can check that. Okay, so my eating thing is like maybe like a mile from my house in a strip. There currently was a hot chicken place, and there currently is a Cane's chicken fingers place, and there is another hot chicken place going in like right next, like a 1/10 of a mile down the road, and a Chick-fil-A going in right there. So within like 2/10 of a mile, there's going to be a Cane's Chicken Fingers, a Chick-fil-A, and 2 different hot chicken places. And I am wondering about chicken saturation. And then I also started thinking about how mad KFC must have been. Because when we were kids, it was like burgers, pizza, and if you wanted chicken, you had to go to KFC, right?
Yeah.
And they owned it. Or you could get a chicken sandwich at a burger place, which probably wasn't going to be very good. Or maybe they started making chicken nuggets or whatever. It's like, but McNuggets were not really infringing that much on the KFC marketplace. And now there's a gazillion chicken-only places, and I'm worried it's going to be too much. Because especially the hot chicken, like what is the hot chicken differentiator from restaurant to restaurant? And both of the hot chicken places, it is not a gigantic menu. It is mostly like a big hunk of chicken with hot chicken stuff on it, and then maybe you
is one of them Dave's?
Yes, one of them is Dave's Hot Chicken, moving in on Hot Chicken Takeover.
Oh, I don't like Dave's Hot Chicken is good, but they advertise their sandwiches as sliders, and they're huge.
Oh, that's tricky.
It's like the biggest piece of chicken you've ever seen on like a really tiny bun. Oh, it's like, but like you go there, it's like, oh, well, I'm kind of hungry. I'll get 2 sliders. And then you come home and you open the container and you're like, this is 4,000 calories.
Because it should be the other way. You should be advertising like, come get our giant chicken sandwich, and then it's a slider. Like, you don't want to undersell the amount of chicken. So anyway, I just don't think they're all going to survive. I don't know what the chicken, is there an unlimited chicken tolerance of the American fast food, fast casual audience? Like, there can't be too much chicken, or is there too much chicken?
I think there's probably that feels redundant. I don't think you need you can take one of the hot chicken places and one of the Chick-fil-A or Cane's, I guess, but you don't need all four of them in one location. That's a lot.
I like Cane's, but I have bad news for Cane's. I am not driving past a Chick-fil-A to go to Cane's.
Yeah, that's probably true for me too. I also like Cane's. I feel like Cane's gets a bad rap. I rather enjoy Cane's.
I enjoy Cane's, but like our Chick-fil-A at the moment is farther away than Cane's. So we end up at Cane's a lot because we don't want to go quite all the way to Chick-fil-A. But you put Chick-fil-A in my backyard, like borderline walking distance, it's going to be hard for me to go anywhere else.
You know what Chick-fil-A has that Cane's doesn't, that I think is a real game changer, is you can get a salad at Chick-fil-A.
Oh, we can't believe Cane's doesn't have salad.
You can't get a salad. It's so easy. Just buy a bag of lettuce.
Bag of lettuce, throw chicken fingers on it.
Yeah.
Well, like we talk about all the time, but sometimes I want to eat chicken, but I don't want to eat an 8,000 calorie piece of toast and 1,900 French fries with my chicken. I just want some iceberg lettuce.
Yeah. I recently got
yourself.
It's true.
Fingers on it.
I have recently gotten into the Chick-fil-A salads. They're quite good.
They're excellent.
That avocado lime ranch dressing is next level.
And they have like little crunchy things to sprinkle on top, like instead of the croutons. They're very flavorful.
Mm-hmm.
Tremendous. All right. What are you thinking about?
So I went to, I promise people I'm not talking about wrestling. I'm just saying this is a point. Like I went to, I went to WrestleMania, which for me was like a bucket list thing, like a bucket list event to go to. It is pure spectacle. It delivered in every possible way you could imagine if you're somebody who's interested in going to WrestleMania. I know people aren't. But then it got me thinking, it's like, okay, I've done that. Like, what's the next thing? Like, what's the next bucket list event that I would want to go to? And this is probably recency bias, but I do think I have settled on the Masters. I would very much like to go to the Masters. And I know you've been as like a media member. In your experience, like, does the Masters deliver on what you expect it to be as like a once in a lifetime thing, I think, for a lot of people to go to?
Let me ask you a question. Are you a hoity-toity rich guy?
No.
Then it doesn't deliver.
Really? Okay.
So here's the thing. Like we are not like, there was a thing I saw like on Twitter, whatever. It was like, here's the private airport outside the Masters, and here's 130 private planes lined up for the people who are at the Masters. And like, that doesn't get me excited. It makes me think like, should I get a flamethrower and go to the private airport? So I cannot, like, I'm not like a man of the people, but I'm more a man of the people than I am a hoity-toity rich guy. So the whole time I'm at the Masters, I'm just like, I'm starting the revolution. I'm starting it here. It starts here. It starts here. We're tearing it all down. The revolution starts here. Wait, I'll start the revolution right after Tiger hits his second shot in the fourth hole. Then we're starting the wait. Mickelson's at Amen Corner. Right after he gets through Amen Corner, we're starting the revolution. So like, that is me the whole time. And it is like a beautiful golf course. It's frankly too beautiful.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm uncomfortable. And I'm uncomfortable the same way as like if you stumble your way into like a $700 a night hotel and it's like, this is a beautiful hotel. Can I please get to a Fairfield Inn? I'm going crazy. I'm crawling out of my skin. And so it's too nice. And
but isn't the point of the Masters where like it's the Ritz-Carlton and for 4 days a year, they let people who stay at the Fairfield Inn in, and it's like mostly people who stay at the Fairfield Inn?
Yes, but the whole time I'm thinking, I don't need your charity. You don't have to throw your doors open to the scum of the earth for 4 days so you can go back to your private club and the fanciest course ever, you bunch of billionaires. So yes, like, I don't want their charity. Just keep me out. Keep me out. I don't want to go. So I have a very hard time with it. So I'm not begrudging anybody who goes. It is spectacular. And it is mind-blowing because you go to the IHOP and you turn left and you go down a driveway with a bunch of trees and you are in paradise. And then you drive in 4/10 of a mile out between the trees and you're back at the IHOP. And it's like, oh my God, what is this? But so I covered it 3 times. And that's what it is. But it actually almost bothers me, like the way people sometimes talk about it like that. I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be? Is like, again, it's like, it's not for you. Like, it's like I don't think they really want us there. Like if they could have the tournament and really just have it be golfers and millionaires, it's like, we got to let people, because like, guess what? They kind of didn't let in women and any minorities until like people made them. So like, they didn't want to do it. They don't want you, Bill. They don't want Philly Billy.
All right, fine. I'll just go to the U.S. Open then.
Yeah, no, that's for you. They have long, rough, people get drunk. Phil Mickelson hits it into the beer tent. Like, that's where you should go. For real. That's more your thing.
Okay.
I don't know. Now I'm going to get people who love the Masters. I understand why people love the Masters, but I'm just telling you, like, that's my vibe the whole time.
Okay.
I also noticed that I covered it 3 years. Like, I covered it, like, I think in like, where did I look? I think I covered it in 03, 04, and 07. And Tiger won it in like 01, 02, and 05. Like, I never covered a Tiger win, but he won like every time right around me. Yeah. So I covered Phil's first one. So that was good.
That's cool.
And then I covered Zach Johnson, son of the North, Iowa native, winning the Masters. All right, last one is my thinking is I like, this happens to me every time, and I'm just super grateful for it. And again, I think, as people may or may not know by now, like, I had an eye surgery. It's the second eye surgery I've had in the last 4 months. It's the fourth eye surgery I've had like in the last 2 years. And this was an emergency thing. I had to have it in Boston, and like, modern medicine, brother. Like, it is just, my mom has talked about it at times. So like, I'm diabetic, diabetes runs in my family. And like, my parents didn't exactly tell me that like diabetes ran in my family until I got diabetes. And they were like, oh yeah, it runs in our family. And I was like, little heads up, what are we would have been eating tasty cakes for lunch every day. But my mom would talk about like her grandmother. So my great grandmother, like, when my mom was a kid, she was like, oh, my grandmother was blind. And it was like, and they like was diabetes related or whatever. And so I don't know, but I'm assuming now at this point that like, that's long enough ago that probably her retina's detached and there was nothing they can do. And she went blind in both eyes. And I've had both retinas detached. And if this was 100 years ago, I'd be blind in both eyes. And I'm not. And like, I think when you get in a moment, and millions of people have been through this, but like, you get in the moment where something happens to you, and there's the technology and the science and the intelligence and the know-how that the human race, helped by higher power, has figured out how to fix this stuff. And it's like, I can't believe they figured this out. That it's like, hey, what happened? It's like, kind of your eye falls out. And it's like, what should we do? It's like, what if we went in with like a tiny little thing and did microscopic surgery and see if we could patch it back together? It's like, that's a great idea. Thank you for thinking of that. So that technology exists. And then B, that there are people who exist who decide, what are you going to do with your life? It's like, I'm going to fix people's eyes. Yeah. What? You decided to do that every day? So that like, when my eye explodes in Boston, there's a guy like, yeah, I'll fix it. Like, what are we talking about? How is that a real thing? Did it cost $1 million? Like, no, I mean, like, it's going to cost a little bit, but there's insurance, but like, you'll be fine. And then all the people. So I'm sitting in there. My nurses were so good and so nice. And like, I get emotional. Like, my kids aren't going to be in the medical profession. Like, they're not going to be nurses because I'm their dad and they're like, never learned to give back to people. But like, for instance, my daughter, who's getting ready to graduate high school, she has friends who are going into nursing. And like, there's a kid in particular who I love, who's such a nice kid. And he's going into nursing. And then I'm sitting there with my wonderful nurses who are helping me recover from this surgery. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't believe these people decide this is their job. Help this pathetic old man feel better about his surgery. That I thought, oh, that kid I know is going to do this with his life. Unbelievable. Like, I start to cry. It's like that people choose to do this. So you think about back to the cavemen. How many cavemen had detached retinas? It's like, hey man, how's your caveman life? It's like, I can't see. It's like, man, it's tough. Yeah. Sorry, brother. And that's it. And then just like in the
put you
history
on a raft
of
and push you out into the water and say,
yeah, we're done. Could you hunt for me? It's like, no, man, I got like 9 kids. I can't be hunting for some blind guy. Yeah. You're done. And in the history of human existence, we're like in the last, this little smidge of it, somebody figured out how when that happens, it doesn't mean you can never see again. And I'm just applying my own personal example to what happens across the board for zillions of people all the time. And unfortunately, there's a lot of things that still can't be fixed. But I think we'll figure out a way to fix them someday. So anyway, when it happens to you, and people know this, and it always bothers, I don't like it when celebrities are like, I think whatever, I do this thing, and then something bad happens to them, and it's like, that's my cause now. It's like, oh, really? The thing that happened to you, now you care about it? So I don't mean to be this way. I care about all the medical stuff. But I want to say thank you to science, medicine, technology, intelligence, and know-how. But in particular, I want to say thank you to the people who choose in their lives to apply that. Whether you're an EMT, whether you're a nurse, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a surgeon, whether you're the person at the desk who helps you check in. When I called the hospital and like my eye was exploding, and I called this hospital in Boston, the person who answered the phone, I said, can I come in? I think I need the surgery for a detached retina. And she said, yeah, come on in. We deal with this all the time. We got you. And it was like in that moment when this was happening to me, like 1,000 miles from my house, the person who answered the phone and said, we got you, was like, I can't believe you just said that. Yeah. Like, you don't know me from Adam. And like, you have me, your people at your place have me. It was exactly what I needed to hear then. So if you're one of those people watching or listening to this, like, this is what you do with your life. You help people who are having medical problems, who are having health issues, who are in crisis. That's what you do every day. It's a sports show. We do nothing. So anyway, if you're one of those people, thank you so much. And but it blows my mind. We're not all the way there. We're not fully formed as humans. I don't think we've figured out everything we're ever going to figure out. But man, have we figured out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Indiana. Blame Indiana.
Blame Indiana.
Salient points. Okay. Ooh, we're going to cover more spring games next week. We're going to talk about the transfer portal more next week. We had an idea. Maybe we'll do like the ceilings and the floors for different Northern college football teams. It seems like a good idea. And we got more stuff coming on Kings of the North. So we appreciate you guys so much for being here every time. Tell a friend, tell a stranger, hey, that Kings of the North. Check it out. We certainly would appreciate it. Always thanks to our great producer, Mike Urostowski, who makes us sound good and look good. For now, he's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was Kings of the North.